Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in layers of rock and soil that date back millions of years, scientists have recently discovered strange traces that raise extraordinary questions. Could these subtle marks in the planet's history point to something more, perhaps even the remains of a forgotten civilization? Our world is ancient, far older than human memory, and much of its story is missing. If we were to vanish tomorrow, even our great cities would crumble into dust within a blink of geological time. What if we are not the first intelligent beings to rise, but simply the most recent? Tonight, we drift into mystery and wonder to explore, what if another civilization came before us? Imagine opening a book and finding entire chapters missing. You turn the pages, but whole sections of the story are gone, erased, torn, or never written down. This is what Earth's history feels like. Our planet is over 4.5 billion years old, yet the part we truly know is so small that it's almost invisible on the scale of time. Human history, from the first farmers to our modern cities, spans only a few thousand years. That is not even a single heartbeat in the life of the Earth. If we zoom out and look at the timeline of our world, we discover that almost everything that happened before us is hidden. The Earth is like a library where nearly all the books have been burned, leaving behind only ashes, fragments, and scattered pages. We live on a planet with an ancient past, but most of it has disappeared into silence. Think of this: the mountains we see today were not always here. Continents drift, collide, and reshape. Oceans rise and fall. Rivers carve valleys, then vanish. Glaciers grind the land smooth, only to retreat and leave new landscapes behind. Over millions of years, this cycle of destruction and renewal erases evidence of what came before. Even if something extraordinary existed, another kind of intelligent life, or even another civilization, time would have wiped most of it away. Let's take an example close to us. Imagine New York City with its towers of glass and steel. Now imagine it abandoned. In just a few decades, weeds would break through the roads. Bridges would crumble. Buildings would collapse. After a few hundred years, forests would swallow the city. After thousands of years, very little would remain. And after a million years, almost nothing. Only faint traces buried deep in soil or rock. If this is what happens to our world in a short span, what chance would a civilization from tens of millions of years ago have of surviving? When we study geology, we learn that even the rocks are not permanent. They break down, get buried, melt, and rise again as new land. This cycle, called the rock cycle, works like a recycling machine that never stops. Over time, it destroys fossils, artifacts, and any fragile memory of life. That's why most species that ever lived left no fossil record at all. And those that did, their bones and shells are rare gifts of chance, preserved only under the most unusual conditions. So, when we ask whether another civilization could have come before us, we must remember this: the past is not a clear record. It is mostly a silence with only small echoes. What we call history is only the tip of a very deep iceberg. Beneath it lies an ocean of unknowns. Some scientists describe Earth's timeline like a single calendar year. If Earth's birth happened on January 1st, then life began around March. Dinosaurs ruled the world from December 13th to December 26th. And humans? We only arrived in the final few minutes before midnight on December 31st. That means 364 days and 23 hours of the year are filled with stories we barely understand. Imagine what could have taken place in all that forgotten time. Even in the slice of history we do know, surprises appear. Just when we think we understand when the first humans farmed, or when the first cities rose, a discovery pushes the dates further back. A stone tool, a buried temple, a fossil footprint. Each one tells us that our knowledge is always incomplete. If this happens with history only tens of thousands of years old, what about millions? There are also moments when the Earth itself resets the clock. Giant asteroids crash down like the one that ended the age of dinosaurs. Volcanoes erupt on scales we cannot imagine, covering continents in lava. Ice ages freeze oceans, then retreat, washing away coastlines. Each event destroys records of the past, leaving the future to guess at what was lost. All of this tells us one thing: Earth's memory is fragile. Civilizations, no matter how great, would be temporary guests on this stage. If others came before us, their stories would have been swept away by the tides of time, hidden in missing pages we may never recover. And yet, that very silence gives us a reason to wonder. Because when we look at those missing pages, we realize they are not empty. They are waiting for us to ask, to search, and to imagine. Imagine this: one day humanity is simply gone. No warning, no struggle, just silence. The cities remain for now, the roads still stretch across continents, and the great bridges still hang over rivers. But without us, the earth begins its quiet work. Nature moves in, slowly at first, then faster with each passing season. In just a few years, weeds would push through cracks in the pavement. Grass would climb around the edges of houses. Small animals would reclaim empty streets. Wolves, foxes, and deer would walk where cars once roared. Birds would fill the skies again, no longer pushed aside by the glow of endless lights. After a few decades, our tallest towers would begin to weaken. Without constant repairs, steel rusts, glass shatters, and concrete crumbles. Water seeps into every crack. Wind and storms tear at rooftops. Forests spread, swallowing suburbs. Farmlands return to wild fields, and deserts shift their sands over empty highways. The map of our world slowly fades back into nature's design. 1,000 years from now, the world would look almost unrecognizable. Our monuments, the things we believe are eternal, would be little more than ruins. The Eiffel Tower, the pyramids, and the Great Wall might remain in fragments, but time would be unkind. Earthquakes, floods, and the simple wearing down of stone would grind them into dust. Even the tallest skyscrapers would vanish, leaving only odd hills of rubble hidden beneath forests. Now stretch your mind further. What about 10,000 years? By then, ice might return, covering continents as it has in ages past. Rivers would carve new paths, burying our ruins deep beneath layers of silt and stone. Forests would be replaced by deserts, deserts by seas. The surface of the earth would erase nearly all trace that humans had ever been here. And after 1,000,000 years, it is almost certain that nothing would remain. Our satellites may drift through space for a time, but even they would fall, burn, or break apart. The earth itself would recycle our story. The continents would shift. Volcanoes would bury ruins under lava. Entire mountain ranges would rise and fall. In the vast silence of geological time, humanity's memory would become almost invisible. Think about this carefully. If we disappeared tomorrow, then 1,000,000 years later, what would be left for another species or another civilization to find? Perhaps a few fossilized bones. Maybe traces of strange chemicals buried in rock layers. Nothing more. Certainly not the endless structures, machines, and cities we imagine as permanent. This thought gives us perspective. If our own great works would vanish so quickly, then what of others? If another civilization had walked the earth millions of years ago, how could we expect to see their footprints now? Just like ours, their cities would have vanished. Their monuments would have been erased. Their tools and machines would have broken down into dust. The earth is relentless. It does not keep our memories safe. It buries them, melts them, and reshapes them. Fossils, which are rare to begin with, form only under perfect conditions. Most life, even in its billions of forms, vanishes without leaving a single trace. If this is true for bones and shells, imagine how much harder it is for evidence of technology or civilization to survive. This is the chilling truth. We are not guaranteed to be remembered. If another species were to dig through the Earth's crust in some far future, they might never know we existed. They might see strange chemical signatures, maybe a thin layer of plastic or radioactive dust, but even that could fade with time. The story of humanity would be nothing but a whisper. And so we ask, what if the same has already happened? What if another people lived here before us, clever, creative, and thriving, but their chapter was erased by the turning of time? Could we tell? Would we even know where to begin looking? The missing traces of our future become a mirror for the missing traces of the past. If we disappear, the silence we leave behind would look almost the same as the silence we find in Earth's older layers. It reminds us of how fragile civilization really is. In this way, imagining our disappearance tomorrow opens the door to a deeper question. How many times could this story have already played out? How many civilizations could have risen, fallen, and been erased long before we arrived? The thought is haunting, but also humbling, for it shows us that even in all our power and brilliance, we are still small against the patience of time. Imagine digging into the ground beneath your feet. At first, you find today's world. Pipes, wires, pieces of glass, and bits of plastic. Dig deeper and you reach older layers, broken pottery, bones, maybe the remains of ancient buildings. Keep going further, and you begin entering a library written not in words, but in stone and soil. The earth keeps its secrets here, layer by layer. Each layer of soil is like a page in a diary, recording floods, droughts, forests, and extinctions. Fossils are pressed between these pages, like fragile bookmarks left behind by time. They tell us of creatures that once lived, of climates that once ruled, and of worlds that no longer exist. But here's the mystery. For every clue we find, countless more are missing. Fossilization is rare, so rare that most living things vanish without leaving a trace. The soil swallows their stories, breaking them apart until nothing remains. This means that what we see today is only a fraction of the past. Imagine a puzzle with most of its pieces gone. That is the story of Earth's memory. Archaeologists and geologists spend lifetimes searching these hidden pages. Sometimes they stumble upon something that feels impossible, like a fossilized forest buried deep underground, or seashells high on mountain peaks. Each one is a whisper from an ancient world, telling us the Earth has been reshaped many times. Deserts used to be oceans. Oceans used to be plains. Plains used to be mountains. The story is always shifting. Now here is the question that gives chills. If another civilization existed millions of years ago, could its traces still lie hidden beneath our feet? Maybe not in the form of cities or monuments, which would have crumbled away long ago, but in strange patterns buried in stone. Perhaps unusual layers of chemicals, carved tunnels, or formations that look too precise to be natural. Some scientists talk about the Anthropocene layer, a future layer in Earth's soil that will record our existence. It will contain plastics, concrete, metals, and traces of radiation. These may survive for millions of years, forming a scar in Earth's memory. But even this scar will not last forever. Eventually, erosion and geology will erase it too. If our mark can fade, then who's to say others didn't leave theirs before us? Already erased, already forgotten? There have even been strange discoveries that spark debate. Odd patterns in coal seams, objects buried where they shouldn't be, ancient stones cut in ways that seem too precise. Most of these mysteries are explained as natural processes, but every so often one lingers, like a question mark buried in the dirt. Stone and soil do not speak easily. They keep their silence well, but sometimes they give us a hint, and those hints remind us of how little we know. If civilizations once walked this earth long before us, their greatest monuments would now be dust. Only the subtlest traces, buried deep, would remain, and even those may have blended into nature's design so well that we cannot tell the difference. That is why every excavation, every fossil, every layer of earth matters. Each one could hold the clue that rewrites everything we think we know. So next time you see a hill, a rock, or even a handful of soil, remember, beneath it may lie the lost pages of Earth's forgotten chapters. Pages that once held stories far greater than we can imagine. Imagine sitting by a fire thousands of years ago, listening to the voices of your ancestors telling stories. There were no books, no televisions, no glowing screens. Just words passed from mouth to mouth, generation to generation. These stories became myths, tales of gods, heroes, floods, and lost worlds. On the surface, they may sound like fantasy. Myths of cities sinking beneath the sea, stories of fire raining from the sky, tales of golden ages where people had knowledge far beyond their time. But what if, hidden within these myths, are faint echoes of something real? Every culture on Earth has its stories. The Greeks spoke of Atlantis, a mighty land swallowed by the ocean. the Mesopotamians told of a great flood that nearly wiped out humanity. Indigenous peoples across the Americas share tales of sky beings, star visitors, and forgotten worlds. In India, ancient texts describe powerful flying machines and wars fought with strange weapons. To us, these seem like imagination, but could they be fragments of memory, distorted over time, from something long before us? Think of it this way: myths are like whispers through the ages. When a story is retold for thousands of years, it changes shape, but its heart often remains. A flood myth may not describe one single event, but perhaps memories of many floods passed down until they blended into a single tale. A story of gods may not be about divine beings, but about encounters with something strange and powerful, too different for people to explain in ordinary words. What makes this idea haunting is how widespread these myths are. Cultures that never touched, never traded, and never spoke to one another share strikingly similar stories. Why do so many speak of floods? Why do so many remember times when humans were taught knowledge by mysterious figures? Why do so many look back to a golden age that ended in disaster? Some researchers suggest this might be coincidence. Human imagination, they say, simply tends to create similar stories. But others wonder, what if myths are our only surviving record of civilizations that came before? Not written in stone or steel, but preserved in memory, hidden in the fabric of folklore? Imagine an ancient people facing a catastrophe, a rising ocean, a falling comet, or the collapse of their world. With no way to preserve their knowledge in books that could survive the ages, they wove their warnings into stories. Over time, those warnings turned into legends, and those legends became the myths we still tell today. Take Atlantis. Was it just a tale invented by Plato, or could it be a faint memory of some advanced society lost to the sea? Think of the flood myths, found everywhere from the Bible to ancient Sumeria to the traditions of Native Americans. Could they be distant memories of a real flood event, one so massive it scarred the memory of humanity forever? Of course, myths alone cannot prove the existence of lost civilizations, but they give us clues. They tell us where to look, what questions to ask, and what mysteries might be waiting. Myths remind us that history is not always written in stone. Sometimes it is sung, painted, or whispered in the dark. And so, when we read these stories, we should not dismiss them as fantasy. Instead, we should listen carefully, for hidden inside may be fragments of truth, echoes of worlds erased by time, but remembered in the language of myth. Imagine walking through a quiet forest and stumbling upon something strange. A perfectly shaped metal sphere buried in the soil, or a smooth carving hidden inside a cave wall where no human should have reached. At first, you might think it's a trick of nature, but then you notice details that make you pause. Details that feel deliberate. Details that whisper of hands that shaped them, hands from a time long before our history books begin. These discoveries are often called out-of-place artifacts. They are objects that seem to exist where they should not. A tool found in rock millions of years old. A spark of advanced craftsmanship in an era when humans were thought to live as hunters and gatherers. A story carved into stone that speaks of knowledge too great for its time. Now, scientists are cautious with such claims. Many supposed artifacts turn out to be natural formations, accidents of geology, or even modern contamination that slipped into ancient layers. But every so often, a mystery lingers. Something is found that does not have an easy explanation. Something that sparks the imagination. What if, buried deep in the earth, there are traces of civilizations that came long before us? Civilizations erased by time. Their cities crumbled, their people vanished, but their smallest creations left behind like seeds caught in stone. One of the puzzles lies in coal deposits. Coal forms over millions of years from compressed plant matter. Yet sometimes within coal seams, strange things have been reported, objects that look like nails, chains, or carvings. Are these tricks of natural crystal shapes? Or are they clues that the Earth has been lived in more than once, in ways we cannot yet prove? Even carvings on ancient stones raise questions. Some show stars, maps, or machines that seem too advanced for the age in which they were made. Skeptics remind us that human imagination is powerful, that even early people could dream of the sky and carve its mysteries. But what if imagination was not the only source? What if these were memories passed down from older worlds? The puzzle is not only about what we find, but what we do not find. If a civilization existed millions of years ago, its tallest towers would now be dust, its metals turned back into the earth. Only a few fragments buried deep might survive, and those fragments, when uncovered, would look strange, out of place, like riddles scattered in stone. Most scientists argue that we should be cautious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and yet the whispers remain. The soil is vast. The oceans are deep. The Earth has hidden billions of years of history beneath layers of rock. How can we be sure we have seen it all? When you hold a stone in your hand, you may be holding a piece of time. And within that time, perhaps, lies a secret, a lost fragment of a story we were never meant to know, a clue that we are not the first to wonder about the stars, to build, to dream. Out-of-place artifacts remain a puzzle. Some are explained, some are dismissed, and some are left unanswered. But together, they remind us of a haunting possibility, that history is not a straight line, but a circle, that what has happened before may happen again, and that we, too, may one day be nothing more than a mystery buried in stone. Imagine holding a small stone in your hand. At first, it looks ordinary, rough, cold, unremarkable. But hidden within it could be the imprint of something that lived millions of years ago. A shell, a leaf, a bone. Locked in silence, waiting for the day someone notices. Fossils are time capsules, gifts from the deep past. They are the whispers of life that once filled the earth, preserved in stone long after their voices vanished. When we look at fossils, we see more than just bones and shells. We see a story of creatures rising and falling, of forests that once stood where deserts now stretch, of oceans that covered land where cities now thrive. Fossils are the Earth's memory, and like all memories, they are incomplete. Most living things vanish without a trace. Flesh decays, wood rots, and only under the rarest of conditions does nature decide to record a moment forever in stone. That silence is where the mystery lies, because for every fossil we find, there are countless others we never will. Whole species may have existed, flourished, and disappeared without leaving behind a single trace. Could civilizations, too, have been erased in that silence? Could entire histories lie buried, their bones dissolved, their cities turned to dust, leaving nothing but faint shadows in the fossil record? Think of how long Earth's timeline really is. Life has existed for billions of years. Human history, as we record it, is barely a heartbeat in comparison. We expect fossils to tell us everything, but fossils are rare, fragile, and scattered. They give us glimpses, not the full story. And so, there are vast stretches of time that remain blank, pages missing from the book of life. Sometimes, fossils surprise us. A tooth is discovered where it should not be. A skeleton is found that does not fit neatly into the tree of life we've built. Each surprise reminds us that the past is not fixed, but fluid. Our picture of it changes as new pieces are added. But the puzzle will always be incomplete because most of it has already faded into silence. That silence is haunting. It whispers a possibility that there may have been worlds we will never know. Entire ecosystems, entire cultures, maybe even entire civilizations erased so completely that they left behind nothing more than the faintest traces, or perhaps nothing at all. Fossils teach us humility. They remind us that survival is not guaranteed, that what lives today may be gone tomorrow. And they remind us that the Earth is vast, mysterious, and filled with secrets still waiting to be uncovered. So the next time you hold a stone, think about what it might be hiding. Beneath its surface could lie a memory of something unimaginable, something from a world long forgotten, a silent witness to a story we may never fully hear. Imagine sitting by a fire in an ancient village, the night air cool and filled with the sound of crickets. A storyteller begins to speak, their voice rising and falling like waves. They tell of a time when gods walked among humans, when cities shone with golden towers, when floods swept across the earth and only a few survived. These stories feel like myths, tales passed down for entertainment or to teach lessons. But what if they are more than that? What if they are fragments of memory, echoes of something that once truly happened? Every culture has its myths. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the islands of the Pacific, people have spoken of great floods, powerful beings, and lost lands. The story of Atlantis, told by Plato, speaks of an advanced civilization swallowed by the sea. In India, the Mahabharata describes cities flying in the sky and weapons of terrible power. The Norse sagas tell of Ragnarok, a cycle of destruction and rebirth. And in the Americas, legends tell of white-bearded teachers who came from across the sea, bringing knowledge before vanishing again. Skeptics call these myths metaphors, ways to explain nature, morality, or the fears of life. But some researchers suggest they may be more like blurred photographs of real events. A flood may not only be symbolic, but a memory of rising seas after the last ice age. A city in the sky may not just be fantasy, but a distorted memory of something we cannot yet explain. What makes myths powerful is how they repeat across cultures. Peoples who never met tell similar stories, of a great fire from the sky, of waters that rose, of beings who brought wisdom. How could such echoes exist unless they shared a common root? Perhaps the stories traveled with migrating people, or perhaps they are memories of a shared human past, one older than we can imagine. Legends are not fossils of stone, but fossils of memory. They survive not in rock, but in the words passed from one generation to another. They are fragile, changed by each telling, blurred by time. But like fossils, they may hold a truth we cannot yet see. When we dismiss myths as mere fantasy, we close the door on the possibility that they may contain hidden knowledge. What if, within the exaggerated tales, there are grains of fact? What if long before written history, humanity rose to heights we do not yet believe possible, only to fall back into darkness? The myths would then be the shadows of that forgotten light. Perhaps our ancestors tried to warn us. Perhaps they told stories of fire, floods, and collapse to remind us that no civilization is permanent, that pride and power can crumble, that the earth itself can sweep away everything we build. Myths and legends are not proof, but they are whispers, whispers that hint the human story may not be as simple as we believe. When we listen closely, not just with skepticism but with curiosity, we may find that the old tales are not just entertainment. They are maps, leading us toward questions we have not yet dared to answer. So as you drift deeper into thought, imagine those ancient fires. Imagine the voices telling their stories, and ask yourself, were they only telling tales? Or were they trying, in their own way, to keep alive the memory of a world that came before ours? Imagine standing on a beach at night. The waves move gently in and out, endless, unbroken, as they have for millions of years. The ocean is dark, deep, and vast beyond imagination. More than 2/3 of our planet is covered by water, yet most of it remains unexplored. Scientists say we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of our own oceans. That thought alone is enough to stir wonder. If anything were to be hidden, forgotten, or erased by time, the ocean would be the perfect place to keep such secrets. Beneath the waves lies a world where sunlight never reaches. Mountains rise higher than Everest, valleys plunge deeper than the Grand Canyon, and strange creatures glow in the darkness like living lanterns. But along with nature's wonders, there may be traces of human stories lost to time. Because oceans are not just barriers, they are also vaults. They swallow coastlines, preserve ruins, and bury the past under layers of sand. Think of what happens when civilizations fall. Their buildings crumble, their statues collapse, and their records vanish. On land, wind, fire, and earthquakes tear them apart. But in the ocean, collapse is quieter. Stone temples sink, wooden ships rest on the seafloor, and artifacts wait patiently, protected by the silence of the deep. Some of the most mysterious discoveries have been made beneath the water. Strange structures off the coast of Japan, giant stone formations near Yonaguni, pyramids submerged near Cuba, roads beneath the Mediterranean, each one sparking debates about who built them, when and why they now sleep beneath the sea. It is no coincidence that so many myths speak of floods. Ancient texts, from the Bible to Sumerian tablets, tell of rising waters that swallowed entire lands. Scientists know that thousands of years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, sea levels rose dramatically. Whole coastlines were lost. If early civilizations had existed there, their cities would now lie hidden under the waves, erased from memory but not from the earth itself. Even today, explorers discover forgotten worlds beneath shallow seas. Ancient harbors, sunken villages, lost trade routes. These are only the smallest hints. Imagine what lies in the depths we have never seen. The ocean is a time capsule so large we can barely comprehend it. Some researchers believe that if there ever was another advanced civilization before us, the ocean is where we are most likely to find its traces. Not in deserts or jungles where time erases everything, but underwater, where ruins may rest in silence, untouched for tens of thousands of years. When you listen to the waves, it is easy to feel their mystery. The ocean hides more than shipwrecks and forgotten treasures. It hides the possibility that our human story is far older, far stranger, and far deeper than we know. As you drift deeper into thought, imagine looking down into the endless blue. Imagine ancient towers, now covered with coral. Imagine statues staring blankly into the dark. Imagine the ocean as a keeper of secrets, patient and eternal, holding stories that one day we may finally learn to read. Imagine looking up at the night sky thousands of years ago. No streetlights, no pollution, only endless stars stretching across the heavens. For ancient people, the sky was not empty space. It was a book of signs, a stage of gods, a canvas filled with stories. They mapped the stars into constellations, followed the movements of the planets, and recorded strange lights and fiery visitors that seemed to come from beyond. To them, the sky was a message waiting to be read. But what if those messages were more than imagination? What if they were fragments of real encounters, records of things that cannot easily be explained? Across the world, cultures have described unusual signs in the sky. Strange objects that glowed and moved against the stars. Lights that hovered and then vanished. Fiery disks that descended to the earth and returned again to the heavens. In ancient carvings, we see wheels within wheels, suns with rays, and beings descending from the sky. In petroglyphs, simple figures stand beneath circles of light. In medieval manuscripts, strange flying shapes were drawn beside comets. To some, these are only symbols of faith or nature. To others, they are clues that something extraordinary once touched the human world. What if another civilization, not of Earth but of the stars, had visited long ago? Could our ancestors, unable to describe advanced machines, have used the only language they had, myth, art, and stories? Could tales of flying chariots or fire-breathing dragons be distorted memories of technology far beyond their time? Even without such interpretations, the sky itself holds mysteries. For thousands of years, people recorded eclipses, meteor showers, and comets. Sometimes these natural events matched closely with myths of destruction or change. A comet blazing across the horizon could become a prophecy of doom. A solar eclipse could be seen as the anger of gods. Yet in these observations lies something deeper. The sense that the sky connects us to something greater, something eternal, something perhaps older than humanity itself. Consider the structures humans built to study the heavens. Stonehenge in England, aligned with the solstices. The pyramids of Giza, lined with the stars of Orion's belt. The observatories of the Maya, who tracked Venus with astonishing precision. Why would early civilizations spend so much effort aligning temples and monuments with the stars unless they believed the sky held profound meaning? Maybe it was only a search for patterns. Or maybe it was memory, a memory of something once shown to them from above. The mystery grows when we remember how the sky looks today compared to then. Light pollution blinds us to the stars, but in ancient times, the Milky Way was a radiant river stretching across the darkness. To live under such a sky would inspire endless questions. Were we alone? Was someone watching? Could the strange signs above have been reminders of an older connection, now forgotten? As you close your eyes, picture that endless sky. The stars cold and bright, the silence immense. Imagine what it must have felt like to see something unexplainable move among them. A sign, a message, a mystery. Perhaps hidden in those stories, our ancestors were trying to tell us something. That we are not the first to look up and wonder. That we are not the only ones who may have called this universe home. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a future where our own civilization has fallen. Cities crumble, forests return, deserts spread, and ice covers what once were highways and towers. Thousands of years later, what would remain? Would a traveler from another age be able to tell whether our machines and monuments were natural or artificial? Would a mountain of rusted steel simply look like rock? Would glass and plastic become unrecognizable sand? This question brings us to one of the most intriguing mysteries when exploring the idea of earlier civilizations: the difficulty of separating nature from technology. Time erases details. The sharp lines of buildings blur into the landscape. Materials decay. What once was a shining invention can, in the span of millennia, appear as nothing more than a curious stone formation. Consider this. When archaeologists find something unusual in the earth, a perfectly shaped sphere, a massive stone aligned with the stars, or a pattern in ancient soil, the debate always begins. Is it natural, formed by geology, or is it the product of intelligence? Sometimes the answer is clear. Other times it lingers in a gray area where both possibilities seem equally strange. The Yonaguni structures off Japan, for example, lie deep beneath the ocean. They look like stairs, terraces, and walls. Some say they are carved by humans, others say they are natural formations. Or take the mysterious spheres found in South Africa, perfect round stones, some with grooves, buried in rock said to be billions of years old. To some, they are natural. To others, they are impossible to explain away. Why is this distinction so hard? Because nature itself creates wonders that look designed. Hexagonal basalt columns, like those at the Giant's Causeway, could be mistaken for tiles. Crystal formations grow in sharp geometric lines. Even rivers carve valleys that look like roads, and wind shapes stones into sculptures that seem intentional. Nature is the greatest architect of all. But then imagine if a civilization before us had once existed. Imagine their cities, machines, and energy systems left behind. Over thousands of years, how would they look? Would their skyscrapers simply erode into hills? Would their machines, long rusted, appear as strange stones? Would their roads vanish under forests until only faint lines remained, mistaken for rivers or faults? Some scientists even suggest that if another civilization had risen millions of years ago, its traces might be invisible to us now. Fossil fuels, strange chemical markers, or layers of unusual minerals could be the only hints. And even those hints might blend so seamlessly into the natural record that we would not notice them unless we looked with the right questions. This idea that the line between nature and technology is blurred by time gives a humbling thought. What if some of the natural wonders we marvel at today are actually whispers of something built? What if the earth itself carries scars of invention, hidden in plain sight? The question is not only about discovery, but also about perception. When we see something strange, our mind chooses the simplest answer. It must be natural. But what if sometimes the simplest answer is not the right one? What if the strange is exactly what it seems, the faded fingerprint of another intelligence? As you drift into calmness, imagine walking through a valley. The rocks rise in clean, flat terraces. The wind whistles through sharp angles. You pause, wondering, is this just the hand of nature? Or could it be something more? That feeling of uncertainty, of awe, is the same feeling that drives us to keep asking questions. And perhaps one day, to uncover truths about the civilizations that may have walked this earth before us. Deep beneath the earth's surface lie countless fossils, silent witnesses to worlds that no longer exist. These bones, shells, and imprints tell us of creatures that once thrived, only to vanish forever. Each layer of rock is like a page in Earth's diary, and many of those pages speak about one thing: extinction. More than 99% of all species that have ever lived are now gone. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for millions of years, only to be swept away by a sudden catastrophe. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant sloths, all walked under the same sun we see today, but their time ended. Some died slowly, others in waves of disaster. The Earth has always been a place of both creation and destruction. But hidden inside these stories of loss are lessons. Each extinction, each collapse, whispers a warning about how fragile civilizations can be. Even the mightiest can vanish. If another intelligent species once walked this planet long before us, they too might have faced this truth. Perhaps their end came through fire, flood, or ice. Perhaps disease, famine, or their own inventions ended their story. When we study these extinctions, we see patterns. Climate changes, shifting continents, sudden impacts from space. These forces shape the Earth without mercy. Yet sometimes the cause seems to come from within. Ecosystems collapsing because balance was broken, food chains snapping because one part was taken too far. In that way, extinction is not just about what nature does to life, but also what life does to itself. What if we are repeating the same steps? Our cities rise higher, our tools grow sharper, but the Earth still holds the same power it always has. A shift in temperature, a crack in the crust, or a single collision from space could undo what we have built. Or perhaps, like civilizations before us, our downfall could come from our own hands. Extinction also teaches us humility. For millions of years, species believed they would last forever. They filled oceans, forests, and skies. They left their mark, but the Earth turned the page. The same could be true for us. If humanity were to vanish, what would remain? Would the next inhabitants find only fossils and dust? Would they wonder about us, just as we now wonder if others came before? As you relax, think of those silent fossils, resting in stone. They remind us that every life, every civilization, has its season. Nothing lasts forever, but within that truth lies a deeper mystery. What stories have already been erased by time? And what story are we writing now that one day may become only a trace for someone else to discover? Long ago, in ages hidden from history, there may have been civilizations that discovered powers we can only dream about today. These were not the sparks of fire struck from stone or the simple warmth of the sun on the skin, but deeper, stranger forms of energy. Forces pulled from the Earth itself, from lightning, from magnets, or from crystals that glowed like stars in the night. To us, such ideas feel like legends, but sometimes legends carry echoes of forgotten truths. Perhaps, before us, there were people who knew how to bend nature's invisible currents into tools that lit their homes, moved their monuments, or guided them through the mysteries of the world. When we look at the great monuments of the past, it is easy to marvel at their size and symmetry. The pyramids rise from the desert, each stone fitted with care and aligned to the stars. The giant stones of Stonehenge form a circle that speaks not only of ceremony but of calculation, an understanding of the sun and moon's path. The ruins of Machu Picchu perch high in the Andes, their stones locked so tightly together that time itself has failed to pull them apart. What if these marvels were not built only with muscle and rope? What if hidden within them was knowledge of energy? Subtle, natural, powerful energy that has since slipped through the cracks of history. Stories scattered across culture speak of fire that never went out, of lamps that burned endlessly, of temples that glowed from within. In India, myths describe flying chariots shining like the sun. In Greece, there are tales of Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, not ordinary flame but a power that could change humanity forever. Ancient texts from the Middle East whisper of towers touched by lightning and glowing stones hidden in sacred chambers. Were these inventions of imagination, or the faint memories of discoveries now erased? Even today, the Earth reveals her endless power. Lightning tears across the sky with the strength of 100 power plants. Beneath our feet, rivers of molten rock churn with heat enough to boil seas. The oceans rise and fall with the pull of the moon, and magnetic fields hum silently across the planet, guiding birds, whales, and perhaps once guiding us too. We are only beginning to learn how to use these gifts. We build geothermal plants, tidal turbines, and solar cells. Yet the planet still holds more than we can grasp. What if a forgotten people had once tapped directly into these veins of power? What if they learned to control lightning, to pull currents from magnetic stones, to turn crystals into natural batteries that lit their nights? If such powers once existed, where are they now? The truth is, time is the greatest eraser. Wood burns, metal rusts, stone weathers under wind and rain. Even plastic and glass crumble when centuries pass. Imagine if our world were abandoned for 20,000 years. Forests would grow over the streets. Towers of steel and glass would topple into rubble. Satellites would fall and vanish into ash. Future explorers might walk through the ruins of our cities and see only strange rocks, layers of debris, or broken circles of stone. Would they ever guess that these were once the bones of machines, the skeletons of power plants, the remnants of an age of energy? Perhaps the same has already happened, not once but many times. But energy is a gift with two faces. It creates and it destroys. The same fire that cooks food can burn forests. The same electricity that lights homes can strike down life in an instant. Nuclear power can light cities, or it can flatten them. What if the people who came before us found a form of energy too dangerous to control? Perhaps they rose high, mastering forces we cannot even imagine, only to fall when that power turned against them. Civilizations can end not only with earthquakes and floods, but with the weight of their own inventions. In seeking to master nature, they may have unleashed destruction that swept them away, leaving little more than whispers for us to wonder about. And so the question returns to us here in the present. What lessons could we learn from the silence of forgotten energy? Today, we burn fuels that warm the skies and change the climate of the earth. We split atoms that hold enough force to end entire cities. We create technologies that grow faster than we can regulate. If there were others before us who fell because of energy, their story is also our warning. Perhaps we are not the first to reach this point. Perhaps others once stood at this very edge, holding in their hands the power to create and the power to destroy, and perhaps they chose poorly. As you drift deeper into thought, imagine yourself standing in a desert under a silver moon. The sand stretches endlessly, and the air hums faintly, as if carrying a song you cannot quite hear. Ahead of you rises a row of stones, glowing faintly as though holding light from a forgotten time. You do not know who built them or why. Perhaps they are only rocks shaped by wind and age. Or perhaps, long ago, they were part of a system that drew energy from the very earth itself. A system whose secret is lost forever. The night is quiet. The stars shine above you. The mystery remains unsolved. Yet the calm it brings is enough. All through human history, one question returns again and again. How do we know what is real? Stories, myths, ruins, and fossils whisper of forgotten ages. But without clear proof, they remain mysteries. If another civilization once walked the earth long before us, what would it take to truly prove it? The answer lies not in imagination, but in evidence so strong, so undeniable, that it cannot be dismissed. Yet evidence is fragile, and time is merciless. Think of what our world would leave behind. Skyscrapers crumble in centuries, bridges fall in decades, and even the strongest metals rust until they vanish. If millions of years passed, almost everything would dissolve into dust. To prove that another civilization existed, we would need something that could survive the crushing weight of ages, something that resists wind, water, and fire. Perhaps a tool carved from stone unlike any we know, or a shard of metal too pure to occur naturally, or even patterns etched deep into the earth that align perfectly with the stars. Such discoveries would not be accidents. They would carry a design, a purpose, a human-like touch that nature alone could never create. Scientists already search for such clues. They dig into layers of rock, searching for traces that should not be there. They study fossils for signs of shapes that hint at tools or carvings. They examine ancient sites, wondering if they were built with knowledge greater than we have credited to early humans. Yet proof must be more than wonder. Proof must silence doubt. A single artifact may inspire imagination, but to convince the world, there must be many, scattered across continents, repeating the same story in unshakable voices. But evidence does not always mean objects. Sometimes proof lies in patterns. Imagine an ancient city buried so deeply that no explorer has touched it yet. Its streets might still be aligned with celestial maps, its stones cut with precision that could not be chance. Imagine DNA records hidden within soil, showing plants bred by hands long gone. Imagine chemical traces of materials that no natural process could create. These are the kinds of signs that, if found, would push the boundaries of belief into the realm of certainty. Still, proving the existence of a lost civilization is harder than proving the existence of life on another planet. When we search the stars, we only need to find one clear signal, one chemical fingerprint, one radio wave that repeats in patterns too precise to be random. But here on Earth, we face the endless eraser of time. Floods bury, fires erase, earthquakes consume, and the slow grinding of mountains turns cities into dust. Even if once there were lights, machines, or monuments greater than any we know, the Earth itself may have hidden them beyond our reach. And yet, hope remains. We are creatures of pattern. We seek meaning in chaos. Each strange ruin, each unexplained carving, each myth of fire and flight may be part of a larger puzzle. To prove that another civilization existed, we would need not only to gather these pieces, but to fit them together into a picture so clear that no other explanation could stand. It is not enough to find something strange. We must show that it is intentional, that it was made by minds like ours, that it carries the fingerprints of thought. Even then, proof may not be accepted easily. The history of discovery shows us that the world often resists what it is not ready to believe. Once people thought the Earth was flat. Once they believed the sun circled the Earth. Once they thought stones could not fall from the sky until meteorites proved otherwise. Perhaps we stand at the edge of another such shift. Perhaps the idea of civilizations before us will one day move from myth to fact. But to reach that moment, the evidence must be overwhelming, enough to stand against skepticism, enough to change textbooks, enough to reshape how we see ourselves. And so we wait. Archaeologists dig, explorers map, scientists measure, and storytellers keep the questions alive. What it would take to prove that another civilization came before us is more than just stone or metal. It is persistence. It is curiosity. It is the refusal to let silence be the final answer. Proof may come slowly, in fragments that build into a chorus, or it may come suddenly, in one breathtaking discovery that rewrites everything. Until then, we walk through the ruins of the world with open eyes. Each broken pillar, each buried carving, each whisper in myth may be more than it seems. Perhaps one day, we will hold in our hands the undeniable truth that others lived and dreamed before us. Until that day, the mystery remains, inviting us to search, to wonder, and to listen closely to the echoes of time. When we gaze at the night sky, it feels endless. Stars stretch across the horizon, each one glowing with light that has traveled for thousands or even millions of years to reach us. Our ancestors once looked up at the same stars, wondering what stories the heavens might hold. Today, we still wonder, but our questions have grown deeper. What if the story of our civilization is not the only one? What if, across the universe, or even within the folds of our own Earth, other stories have already been written, forgotten, and perhaps even erased? The universe is unimaginably vast. Galaxies spiral in endless patterns, planets circle suns we cannot see, and black holes hide secrets we may never touch. If life could begin here on our small blue world, why not elsewhere? If civilizations can rise here, why not in other corners of the cosmos? And if the cycle of creation and destruction is woven into the fabric of existence, perhaps we are only one version of a story told again and again in different places at different times. Some scientists suggest the universe itself may be layered. In one version, our world thrives with technology, satellites, and cities. In another, perhaps, the Earth is untouched, a forest world where no humans ever appeared. In another, civilizations could have risen long before us, reached heights we cannot imagine, and then faded, leaving only echoes behind. These ideas belong to theories of parallel universes and the multiverse, where reality splits into countless versions. Though unproven, They stir the imagination. If such universes exist, then the idea of civilizations before us becomes more than just possible. It becomes inevitable. Even within our own world, there are signs that stories may repeat. Nature itself works in cycles. Stars are born, they shine, they die, and from their ashes new stars form. Planets emerge from dust, oceans rise and fall, continents drift apart and then collide again. In the same way, civilizations may follow a rhythm of birth, growth, and disappearance. Our own story might be one beat in a cosmic song, played countless times before. Legends from many cultures speak of golden ages, of great floods that wiped out entire worlds, of forgotten people who fell from the sky or rose from the depths. These may not only be myths, but memories of cycles past. Perhaps each time the world resets, it leaves behind faint reminders, like footprints washed by the tide but never fully erased. We see them in stories, in symbols, in ruins whose meanings are half remembered. What makes this idea so haunting is not only the thought that others may have lived before us, but that their stories might still be unfolding elsewhere. Somewhere across the galaxies, another civilization could be looking at their skies, asking the same questions. They may wonder if they are the first or if others came before. They may search their ruins for proof, just as we do, unaware that across space and time, our stories echo one another. It is humbling to think that our history may not be unique, yet it is also comforting. If civilizations rise and fall like stars, then we are part of something much larger than ourselves. We are not alone in our striving, our building, our dreaming. The universe itself may be filled with parallel stories, different yet familiar, each one a reflection of the other. As you let your eyes grow heavy, picture the stars above you not just as distant suns, but as storytellers. Each one may hold a world, and each world may hold a history. Some of those histories may resemble ours. Some may have ended long ago, and some may just be beginning. In that vastness, the idea that another civilization came before us feels less like a mystery and more like a gentle truth. Since the dawn of time, humans have carried one gift that never fades: curiosity. It is the quiet spark that keeps us searching, the restless question that drives us forward. When we look at ancient ruins, when we trace symbols on forgotten stones, when we dig deep into layers of earth hoping to find something that does not belong, it is curiosity that guides us. Without it, we would have never left the caves, never built cities, never reached for the stars. The question, what if another civilization came before us, is more than a mystery. It is a reflection of who we are. We are not satisfied with what we see on the surface. We want to know what lies beneath. We want to know if others dreamed, built, and vanished before us. It may never be easy to answer, but the search itself is valuable. Every question opens new doors. Every possibility reminds us that our story is still being written. Perhaps one day we will uncover undeniable proof. A tool, a monument, a record etched in stone. Perhaps one day technology will allow us to see deeper into Earth's history than ever before, peeling back the layers of time. But even if we never find such proof, the act of wondering already changes us. It humbles us, reminding us that we may not be the first nor the last. It lifts us, reminding us that the universe is bigger than our imaginations. Civilizations rise, flourish, and fall. We know this from our own history. Empires that once ruled the world now exist only in books and broken ruins. If this can happen in a few thousand years, what might vanish in a million? To ask if another civilization came before us is also to ask about our own fate. Will we too one day become a forgotten chapter, leaving only whispers for the next to wonder about? The thought is sobering but also inspiring. It reminds us to treasure what we have, to build wisely, and to leave behind more than just ruins. In the end, the greatest proof may not be objects or monuments. It may be the questions themselves. Our endless curiosity is evidence that we are part of something larger. We are storytellers who inherit mysteries from the past and pass them on to the future. The universe may be full of civilizations rising and falling like stars, but what connects them all is the urge to seek, to know, to dream. So as you rest tonight, let your mind drift with this thought. Maybe others once walked where we walk now. Maybe their voices echo in the wind. Their hands shaped stones we cannot understand. Their dreams still float between the stars. And maybe, just maybe, one day we will join them, not as strangers separated by time, but as fellow travelers in the endless story of the cosmos. The mystery remains open, the search continues, and curiosity, like the stars above, will never fade. As our journey comes to an end, take a deep breath and let your thoughts settle. We've wandered through forgotten ages, questioned the mysteries of time, and imagined worlds that may have risen and fallen long before our own. Whether those civilizations truly existed or remain only whispers, one thing is certain: the universe is full of wonder. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let curiosity guide your dreams. Picture vast stars overhead, endless worlds spinning in silence, and stories waiting to be discovered. Every question you carry is a thread in the fabric of the cosmos, weaving you into something much larger than yourself. Close your eyes now and let the quiet of the universe hold you. Tomorrow, new questions will rise, but for now, rest in the comfort that the mystery is not meant to be solved, only felt. Sleep well, dream deeply, and remember, the story of life is still being written, and you are part of it.